In this chapter, what I'm going to do is explain about components in Angular. At the moment, we've just basically worked on virtually everything has gone in a single component, which is generated for us right at the very beginning, app component. And we've just basically used ordinary HTML to actually do all our styling, etc. But one of the really powerful things of Angular and other frameworks like this is its ability to allow the developer to create their own custom components, which can then be reused in different projects, but also can help modularize the code that you're actually working on. Now, in this very to demonstrate some of the basic principles of it, I'm going to look at componentializing this particular span here, and we can create maybe our own sort of special synonym object, which will instead of using this span, and we'll put the kind of all the kind of HTML into the subcomponent, and etc. And just before we do that, we'll just kind of just look at the logic of it. So essentially, when we list all of our rhymes, for example, so I'll just show you, there's a list of rhymes here. When we show that list of rhymes and we click on any one of them and it goes red, what is basically happening is this. We've got this, we iterate through all of the array called synonyms to show, okay, which has been generated by this function here, getDM synonyms, okay. Then whenever we click on any particular one of them, we run this function getDMRhymes. If I go into the component one, we get to this function getDMRhymes, where the first thing we do is we say set the current rhyme query, the thing that we're going to create rhymes for, as the being the input, and then basically we go to the web service, we collect loads of all of these rhymes, and then we put them in the window below. So that's the basic logic that we're working on. So what I'm going to try to do at this point is to go remove this span and replace it with a component of our own, which we'll call, I'm going to call it, following using the Italian word for synonym, which is synonimo. So I'm going to create a kind of object called synonimo, and then we're going to use that instead of this span here. Okay, but in order to do that, we're going to have to do a few things. So let's kind of go. So the first thing to do is, if you're using npm node, is we can create this component by doing a simple command, which is to say ng, meaning the Angular keyword, okay, g meaning generate, c meaning component, and then the name of whatever component it is we're going to be creating. So I'm going to create one called synonimo, so synonimo, okay, and I run that, and what that should then do is create a folder in which we have a thing called synonimo, okay. And so what I am attempting to do now is I'm attempting to replace this span here that's in app component HTML with something similar with synonimo. Now, as I say, there's not a very good reason for doing this, because it doesn't make our code any better, but it will explain to you the concepts. And then what I will do afterwards, though, is then componentialize the whole of the top half, the whole of the synonym getting part of this application, which would be worth genuinely doing, but it'd probably be easier to understand what I'm doing if I do it first on this span here for no good reason. Okay, so let's kind of, we're going to comment the span out a little bit here, and then we're going to create our synonym object here. So we created this synonimo object. Sorry, not object. This synonimo class. Now, to actually instantiate it in the page, what you do, this is the particular kind of Angular convention. You type in app dash followed by the name of the component. So app dash synonimo. Okay, and then we've got our app dash synonymous. So that's what we're going to do. Now, this again is it will just be one. The synonymous object will just be one of all the synonyms. So we're going to kind of do the same sort of thing. We're going to have to iterate over all of the synonyms to show a list that's in our class. we'll leave the click for now because that's a little more complicated to deal with. Okay, but we'll just concentrate on trying to actually make it appear rather than being clickable or anything like that. So to make it appear, somehow we've got to get this X, because this is the thing which is visible in the span. We've got to get somehow this X to appear inside a span inside the class. So how does that work? Well, let's go now into our synonymous. So we can we've got the HTML, which is essentially does the visual part of it, and we've got the TypeScript file, which is the code behind, if you like, which lingers behind this this visual class. So let's we're just going to put in here in our HTML, we're just going to put in a span. Okay, and because it'll still be just a span. Okay, and but somehow we've got to get into there between the two span tags is the actual word of this particular synonym. How do we do that? Okay, well, what we do is we create imports, okay, in the actual synonymo class. So let's go into the synonymo code behind here, which is here, and we're going to create now two imports which we will allow the kind of the parent component to put in to actually specify. So just before the constructor, I'm going to create an input, and let's kind of like, so we'll start off with being because remember what we've got is this whole big list of synonyms, one of which the user clicks on. So we can call that the one of which the user clicks on as being maybe the source. Let's just do something like that. So input source colon a string, and but then it's also it's also, but it's kind of contained both the one the user's clicked on, but also all of the others. So we'll put all the other ones as sim. So input syn, we'll make that a string as well. Now at the moment you'll see that currently it doesn't like input. Now that's because we haven't imported the input here. So let's just go on here, type in input. So now we've got there, and if we've done that, now we don't have any problems with having input in it. Okay, so we've got that now set up. Now of course these become kind of class variables. So what we can do now is we can put that into the actual HTML behind it. So for now, we'll just show that particular variable which is in our class, which is called syn, okay, indicating the not necessarily the one that's the currently clicked one, but it is, you know, the one as we iterate over the array. Okay, so we've got that now. We've set that up. We've got, so that there's our. But then the question then becomes, how do we get the source and syn into the actual class? Well, actually what we do is we go now to the parent here, which currently is app component, and what we want to do now is somehow set source and syn here. Okay, and what we do kind of the one, so the one we kind of click is called current rhyme query. So we'll say source in square brackets equals, in quotes, current rhyme query. Okay, and if you like, the generic one in the, which as we iterate over this list is going to be the x as we go let x of synonyms to show. So we can then say syn equals quote x. Okay, and this way those things, I'll just kind of move this across so it's easier to read. Then this then gets put into the HTML. Okay, so we get into the class syn and source, and then the HTML can actually reference it here. So having done that, let us now do an ng serve, and you'll just see, and probably at the moment it won't look all that good. So if I do a file, save all, and then I do ng serve. Okay, so that's going to be building, and let's hope it's not going to cause any problems. And now it says it's compiled successfully. Let's kind of refresh and see if it has. And now it's typing fast. Now what should happen is that we should expect it to produce the same list of synonyms, but they shouldn't be very well formatted. And that's exactly what's happened. So what we've got now is that same list of things, but they're not formatted very well. And the reason for that is because the CSS no longer applies to it. And this is important thing about how CSS works. The CSS that we previously created in app component, here span, etc., that only applies to app component. It doesn't apply to anything else. So all of the span and highlight, which were used for the coloring, are kind of going to be needed to be put inside the CSS for the synonymo component. So let's kind of move, well, let's keep that. Let's not move it actually, just keep it there, because for the time being the other class also uses some visualization, the one which shows the rhymes. So I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to go back to CSS, and I'm going to copy also the highlight one into the synonymo CSS. Okay, so now we've got those pasted in there, and if I now do a file, save all, okay, what should happen now is that if it's recompiled properly, if I now type in fast again, now it returns with the colors in. But if I click on anything, there's no implementation of click at the moment. And that, in order to do that, we're going to have to learn a tiny bit about events, and we'll also be able to apply that kind of coloring for making sure that the particular one that has been clicked on has been highlighted.